upcoming rates for the sewer system, and we will do the same thing in 2 weeks talking about the water system. And the constant theme through all of this is that there are extensive infrastructure projects that we are either in the middle of or talking about very soon that require exorbitant amounts of money. And I think that infrastructure and streets is probably the one we're going to have the toughest challenge with, because it doesn't have a direct funding source other than the general fund. Rondo is right. We are projected to grow by 35,000 people in the next 20 years. The good part of that is that that will bring with it extra tax revenue, and we as city councilors affect your daily lives every day by making decisions today that go into effect tomorrow. Part of that decision-making process is that we allocate extra funds during our budgetary process to specific projects that we prioritize amongst ourselves and the advisory committees that help us with that process. So we have the ability, as we grow revenue in the city, to prioritize projects such as streets, roads, infrastructure, ADA, all of the issues we're talking about tonight. The challenge of growing is that our roads are in terrible condition right now, and adding all of those people and cars onto an already challenged infrastructure system will require some planning that we haven't anticipated yet. The addition of a four-year university will compound that problem. There are pros and cons to all of this, but in the end, we need to have a sound plan, knowing that we will have to figure out the list of priorities, where that money's coming from, and where that money will be in the future as all of these projects need maintenance. I'm a local small business owner. I've had the pleasure of serving for the last 4 years on council, sitting through 2 budgetary processes. I have fiscal conservancy that I apply to my business that I also bring to the council to make sure that pet projects and frivolous individual projects aren't at the forefront of those priorities. I would be pleased and happy to carry that experience forward and continue that fiscal conservancy. Thanks.
Our last candidate to speak tonight is Barb Campbell, who is also running for position 7.
Hi. Thanks so much for coming out on this rainy evening. My name is Barb Campbell, and in the interest of full disclosure, I am the co-founder of the group that's sponsoring this forum this evening, Slower, Safer Bend. My partner, Foster, and I started this organization after a battle with the city to try and get traffic calming on our own street, and that was a battle that we lost. So after that, we kind of became inspired. We did become inspired to do some research, and what we discovered was that those black and white slow down, it's your neighborhood signs, they hand out 1,000 of those signs every single year. 1,000 of slow down, it's our neighborhood signs a year. We discovered that in the past several years, 300 households have gone to the city and gotten filled out citizen services requests, they call it. And that means you go onto the website or you go down to the city and you figure out what piece of paper do I need, and you fill it out and you turn it in. And that's called a citizen service request. There were 300 of those. And of those 300, 3 had been addressed the last time that we checked. 3, thank you, Nancy. 3 out of 300. And we really feel like that's just the tip of the iceberg, because people are busy. There are a lot of people who are concerned about the safety of their children as they're playing, as they're trying to get to school. There are a lot of people that might be riding their bikes more if they felt like the streets were safe, but they're just too busy to get down to City Hall and figure out what a citizen service request is. And they're just too busy to get out to the county road department during business hours to pick up a sign to put in their own yard. And I will tell you, that's why we started Slower, Safer Bend. But I am running for city council because I feel like those problems, those traffic safety problems, are really just a subset of larger problems of the quality of life that are facing people in Bend. We've got neighborhoods that are just being overrun with vacation rentals, for example. We have people who are so concerned about where the new location for the OSU Cascades campus is going to go. These kinds of changes make a big difference to how people feel about their own neighborhoods and their own communities. That's why I'm running for city council. I think I can help. I'm a small business owner. I own Wabi Sabi, which is a cool little store just right down the street in downtown Bend. I've lived in Bend for 20 years, and I think I can take that experience in order to help with some of these problems. The infrastructure projects that the incumbents are talking about have been characterized by overpriced, over-engineered projects that are quite frankly just costing us far more than we need to be spending. Our utility rates might seem low compared to other communities around the state, but I think you'd be hard-pressed to find anyone that would think that our cost of living is anywhere near the middle of the state. We need to keep those utility rates down. The fact is, those problems facing people in our communities, there are a lot of people that would wish to have such problems. There are so many of our citizens for whom the dream of owning their own home is just unattainable. There are so many of our citizens who cannot find a place to rent at all, much less an affordable place to rent. And there are so many of our citizens that are slipping into homelessness. The Bend-Lapine School District reports that there are some 800 students that are homeless in our own community. So I would like to use my experience to try and save money every place we possibly can, especially on these gigantic multi-million-dollar projects, because those millions can really address a lot of the quality of life issues that so many of us are worried about. Thank you so much for coming, and I want to remind you that the most important thing anybody said tonight was said by Richard, which is vote. Whoever it is that you vote for, be sure and vote all the way down the ticket for City Council. Thanks for coming.
All right, I have a handful of questions here, and as I said, we were going to have to be very careful and choose probably only a couple of them. And so I've been trying to do two things at one time, paying attention and looking through these. So I have picked out a couple of them, but I also want to make sure that we save time for Mayor Clinton to have his piece to say. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the question. Each one of the candidates will be given only 1 minute to address the question that I'm reading, and so you'll have a chance to do that. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go down the row so we can pass the microphones down. That'll make it a little bit easier. And do you have your phone set for 1 minute now? Yeah, okay, good. So here is one of the questions that I was able to select, and I tried to stay pretty much to the transportation and slower, safer Bend issues. Given that tax revenues are rising, would you vote to increase the $30,000 budgeted to remove barriers that deny people with disabilities access in their community? So here's that question again. Given that tax revenues are rising, would you vote to increase the $30,000 budgeted to remove barriers that deny people with disabilities access in their community? And we'll start down here with Scott.
Before saying yes to that, I think it's an overall budgetary issue where we have to look at the entire budget and prioritize it again. So I wouldn't say absolutely yes to that without looking at the entire budget as a whole and seeing where that falls in relation to other spending. We have many areas in the city where we don't have sidewalks. We're still way behind